It's never easy looking in the mirror and seeing a reflection you don't recognize, especially when that reflection is riddled with secrets that threaten to unravel everything you've built. This wasn't just about some bad hair day or a few extra pounds. This was about life and death, a reality I knew was bearing down on me, and a truth I'd tried desperately to bury. I've seen a lot of families walk onto my stage, their lives tangled in a web of dysfunction, addiction, and denial. But this case, this was different. It wasn't a family fighting amongst themselves. It was a man, let's call him Mark, who was seemingly at war with his own body, his own truth. Mark was in his early 42nds, successful, charismatic, the kind of guy who could light up a room with his smile. But behind that smile was a ticking time bomb. He'd been diagnosed with a rare and aggressive form of cancer, a diagnosis he kept hidden from his wife, his children, his entire world. The labels, as some might call them, were liar, deceiver, self-destructive. My initial impression? A man terrified of losing control, clinging to a facade of normalcy while his world crumbled around him. The backstory, as it always does, was a complex tapestry woven with threads of fear, pride, and a desperate need for control. Mark had always been the rock, the provider, the fixer. He was the guy everyone depended on. And the thought of becoming vulnerable, of admitting he was sick, was anathema to his identity. His father had died young, a long, drawn-out battle with illness that stripped him of his dignity. Mark witnessed that firsthand. And somewhere along the line, he decided that wasn't going to be his story. He'd rather go out on his own terms, maintaining the illusion of strength and control until the very end. This wasn't just about sparing his family pain. It was about preserving his own image, his own sense of self-worth. The model here was avoidance, pure and simple. Confronted with a terrifying reality, Mark chose to bury his head in the sand, hoping it would somehow disappear. The deeper I dug, the clearer it became that this wasn't just about the cancer. It was about a lifetime of suppressing emotions, of refusing to acknowledge vulnerability, of building walls so high that even he couldn't see over them. The escalation began subtly, almost imperceptibly, minor health issues dismissed as stress, increased irritability attributed to workload, a growing distance between him and his wife explained away by long hours at the office. But the cancer was relentless, and the symptoms became increasingly difficult to ignore. He started missing work, his energy plummeted, and the pain became unbearable. He concocted elaborate lies to explain his absences, pushing his wife further and further away. The blame shifting was classic. His wife was too demanding, his kids were too needy, his job was too stressful, anything but the truth. The misunderstanding was profound. His family, understandably, felt betrayed, neglected, and confused. They couldn't understand why he was withdrawing, why he was so angry, why he was suddenly so distant. The tension in the house was palpable, a simmering pot about to boil over. That pot boiled over when his sister, Sarah, discovered a pile of medical bills hidden in his office. Confronted with the evidence, Mark finally cracked, blurting out the truth in a fit of rage and despair. The fallout was immediate and devastating. His wife was heartbroken, his children were terrified, and his sister was filled with a mixture of anger and pity. They felt like they had been living a lie, that they didn't even know the man they thought they knew. That's when they reached out to the show. They were desperate for answers, for guidance, for some way to salvage their fractured family. They were angry, hurt, and confused, and they needed someone to help them navigate this impossible situation. The confrontation on stage was raw, emotional, and at times brutal. I started with Mark cutting through the BS, challenging his narrative of self-preservation. Mark, I said, my voice firm but measured, You're not protecting your family, you're robbing them. You're robbing them of the opportunity to say goodbye, to support you, to grieve with you. You're robbing them of the truth. He pushed back, of course, deflecting, rationalizing, clinging to his story. He talked about not wanting to be a burden, about wanting to protect his children from the pain. But I wasn't buying it. That's a convenient excuse, Mark, I countered. The truth is, you're afraid. You're afraid of losing control, of being seen as weak, of facing your own mortality. The resistance was strong. He was a master of denial, a skilled manipulator, even of himself. But I kept pressing, peeling back the layers of his carefully constructed facade. I brought his wife, Emily, onto the stage. Her pain was palpable, her anger simmering just below the surface. Mark, she said, her voice trembling, I love you, but I don't understand you. Why didn't you tell me? Why did you shut me out? He couldn't answer. He just stood there, his head bowed, his shoulders slumped. I turned to his children, teenagers who were clearly struggling to process what was happening. Your dad loves you, I said, but he's made a mistake. He's let his fear control him, and it's hurt all of you. But it's not too late to fix this. It's not too late to be honest, to be vulnerable, to be a family. The breakthrough, if you could call it that, came slowly, tentatively. It wasn't a sudden epiphany, a dramatic conversion. It was a gradual softening, a crack in the armor. He started to cry, tears of regret, of fear, of exhaustion. I'm sorry, he choked out, his voice barely a whisper. I'm so sorry. The outcome? Well, that's where things get complicated. This isn't a Hollywood movie. There's no neat and tidy ending. Mark didn't suddenly become a beacon of vulnerability and selflessness. He remained flawed, scared, and often difficult. But he did start to open up, to communicate with his family, to allow them to be a part of his journey. He started attending therapy, both individually and with his wife. He started spending more time with his children, creating memories, sharing stories, saying the things that needed to be said. Did it fix everything? No. The pain was still there, the anger still lingered, and the shadow of his illness loomed large. But there was also a newfound sense of connection, of honesty, of authenticity. Emily, though still hurt and angry, began to see a glimmer of the man she had fallen in love with, the man who had been buried beneath layers of fear and denial. The children, though still confused and scared, began to understand that their father was not a monster, but a flawed human being struggling to cope with an impossible situation. The truth is, there are no easy answers when it comes to terminal illness. There's no magic formula for dealing with the pain, the fear, the uncertainty. But what I've learned over the years is that honesty, vulnerability, and connection are essential. We can't control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. We can choose to face our challenges with courage and grace, or we can choose to hide behind walls of denial and self-deception. Mark chose, in the end, to tear down those walls, to let his family in, to face his mortality with honesty and vulnerability. It wasn't easy, it wasn't pretty, but it was real. And sometimes that's all we can ask for. You know, people often ask me if I ever get discouraged, seeing so much pain and dysfunction on a daily basis. And the truth is, sometimes I do. Sometimes I feel like I'm just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, trying to fix problems that are too deep, too complex, too ingrained. But then I see a glimmer of hope, a moment of connection, a spark of change, and I remember why I do what I do. I do it because I believe in the power of the human spirit, the capacity for resilience, the ability to heal. I do it because I believe that everyone deserves a chance to live a better life, to be happier, healthier, and more fulfilled. And sometimes all it takes is a little bit of honesty, a little bit of vulnerability, and a whole lot of courage. This case with Mark stayed with me, not just because of the dramatic revelation on stage, but because it highlighted a fundamental truth about human nature. We are all afraid of something. We are all vulnerable. And we all have secrets that we try to hide, even from ourselves. But those secrets, those fears, those vulnerabilities, they don't define us. What defines us is how we choose to deal with them. Do we run and hide, or do we face them head on? Do we shut down and isolate ourselves, or do we reach out for help? Do we allow our fears to control us, or do we choose to live our lives with courage and authenticity? See, that's the thing about the human experience. It's messy, it's complicated, and it's often painful. But it's also beautiful, it's meaningful, and it's full of potential. And it's our job, each and every one of us, to make the most of it, to live our lives to the fullest, to embrace our vulnerabilities, and to connect with others in a meaningful way. Now, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've seen just about everything you can imagine. I've seen addiction, abuse, infidelity, betrayal, and everything in between. I've seen families torn apart by anger, resentment, and misunderstanding. I've seen lives destroyed by bad choices, poor decisions, and a lack of self-awareness. But I've also seen incredible acts of kindness, compassion, and forgiveness. I've seen families heal from deep wounds, overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles, and find their way back to each other. I've seen people transform their lives, turn their pain into purpose, and become the best versions of themselves. And that's what keeps me going. That's what gives me hope. That's what makes me believe that even in the darkest of times, there is always light to be found. With Mark, the light was dim, flickering, but it was there. He had a long road ahead of him, a difficult journey to navigate, but he wasn't alone. He had his family by his side, a support system in place, and a newfound commitment to honesty and vulnerability. And that, in my book, is a pretty good start. It's easy to judge people, to condemn them for their mistakes, to write them off as hopeless cases. But I've learned that everyone deserves a second chance. Everyone deserves the opportunity to learn, to grow, and to change. And sometimes all it takes is a little bit of understanding, a little bit of compassion, and a whole lot of tough love. That's what I try to provide on my show, and that's what I try to bring to every interaction I have with people, both on and off the stage. Because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to figure things out to navigate this crazy thing called life and to find our way to happiness and fulfillment. And sometimes we need a little help along the way. Looking back on Mark's case, I see it as a microcosm of the larger struggles we all face. The fear of vulnerability, the need for control, the desire to protect ourselves and our loved ones. These are universal human experiences. It's how we choose to deal with these experiences that determines the course of our lives. Do we allow fear to dictate our actions, or do we choose courage? Do we hide behind walls of denial, or do we embrace vulnerability? Do we isolate ourselves in our pain, or do we reach out for connection? These are the questions I challenge my guests to consider. And these are the questions we should all be asking ourselves. Because the truth is, life is short, it's precious, and it's not worth wasting on fear, denial, and isolation. It's worth living to the fullest, embracing every moment, and connecting with others in a meaningful way. Mark's story, while unique in its details, is ultimately a reminder of the importance of honesty, vulnerability, and connection. It's a reminder that we're all in this together, that we all struggle, and that we all need each other. And it's a reminder that even in the face of death, there is still hope, there is still love, and there is still the possibility of redemption. So, what's the takeaway here? What's the message I want you to walk away with? It's simple. Be honest with yourself, be vulnerable with others, and connect with the people you love. Don't let fear control you. Don't let denial blind you. And don't let isolation trap you. Embrace your humanity, embrace your imperfections, and embrace the messy, complicated, beautiful reality of life. Because that's where true happiness and fulfillment lie. That's where you'll find the strength to overcome any obstacle, the courage to face any challenge, and the love to heal any wound. And that, my friends, is the truth. And it's a truth I've seen play out time and time again on my stage, in my office, and in my own life. It's a truth that's not always easy to hear, not always easy to accept, but it's a truth that's always worth fighting for. Because when we're honest with ourselves and with others, we create space for authenticity, for connection, and for genuine healing to begin. That's the power of truth, and it's a power we all possess.